in here. You're way out the back up there. Yeah, it's like, I'll try and remember you all the way out there. Now, before we get going, there's actually something I want to do that I saw it, it's kind of, you know, a flash mob that's happening with conferences at the moment. And I thought, oh, next time I'm presenting, I'm totally doing that. That is so cool. So what I'd like you to do, and this is an unusual request for presenters, is actually get your mobile phones out. So grab your mobile phones and turn on the flashlight. Okay, so if you can just, here's directions. Okay, so take your mobile phones out, turn on the flashlights and wave them up in the air. We've got this thing here, and I'll get a photo, hold on. So, put them up in the air, up above your heads. It's fine. Oh my goodness. Okay, well, hold on.
You should take a selfie.
Yeah, I should take a selfie. This could be difficult. And this doesn't count as my presentation time either. Here we go. Okay. And what I meant to say to you is there's all stars out in the audience. So you've now been part of a global flash mob that's taking the world by storm. Here's one in Lisbon, and yours will be posted as well. So you're up there too. So, my name's Kirsten Mann. I've been the User Experience Director at Aconex for the past 4 years. I've been designing websites and products for over 20 years. It sounds pretty horrible when you say it like that. But I've worked for big companies like Ernst & Young, MYB, Census, right through to smaller companies that were funded by, like startups and things funded by Orica and JB Weir and Australian federal government. So I've kind of seen a lot of different things, a lot of different levels of crazy. When I'm talking, I just wanted to, when I see people present, I'm always curious by nature and probably a bit nosy. And so I always like to have a bit of an insight into the person who's talking. So I'm Kirsten, I'm a bit crazy when it comes to whiteboards and paper. They're always near me and doing something with them. And I know this is kind of an agile related conference. So you'll see there that I am actually doing a retro, but this talk isn't a lot about the rest of the agile stuff. I have a crazy family, 2 crazy kids and 4 if you count my husband and the Italian greyhound Zia, so the whole lot of us are a bit nuts. And I work for a crazy company called Aconex, which is actually a pretty fabulous company as well. And we tend to have a lot of fun, which Kerry in the last talk kind of highlighted that at the end of her presentation. And it's okay. And so it is a really key factor for me. Okay, so when Craig talked to me about presenting here, I was kind of thinking about some of the stuff that's been going through our heads lately, like, you know, what are our topics and flavours of the month at work? And when I was thinking about it, and I've actually seen Brent in the audience, so he probably hears us yammering on about some of these things sometimes. Design patterns, you know, evolutionary versus revolutionary design. How much prototyping is enough prototyping? Activity-based personas is a big one with me at the moment, you know, moving away from just doing insights into people to actually into the activities that they do on a daily basis. How can you be sure users really know what they want, you know, even if they're telling you things, how are you pressing that, how are you really probing? Minimal viable product versus minimal viable experience versus minimal viable technology. Everybody's, you know, yammering on about these type of things. And probably one of the most pressing things is, do I really need an old black coat? It is an awesome black coat, by the way, but I'm kind of having this argument at the moment with my husband. So when I was thinking about these things, I kind of thought about the questions that a lot of UXers and BAs and POs, you know, commonly ask me, but also talk to each other about as well. And in thinking about that, some of the common ones are, how do you convince others something isn't right? Like, you know, you're on this project, they're drinking the Kool-Aid and you're thinking, what the hell is going on, you know? And how do you make them see the light or see that something isn't right here? Another one is, how do you do things correctly? So, you know, people basically, you've gone through this process, you've designed all these features, hello, and you've got to the stage where everything's been agreed and suddenly the deadlines are squeezing and those things that were essential to this design are suddenly in this nice to have column. And you're thinking, where did this happen? Like, what the hell's going on? And probably the one that, when I hear people say this really, I kind of get this inward sigh of, oh my God, what do we do? Because really, I think when, ultimately the lifeblood of people being passionate is that they feel that they can make a difference. And so when you're thinking and hearing people questioning this, it's kind of like, oh, okay, we're really at a point where we've got to look at this. And I find this is particularly the case for good UXers, but particularly anybody who's passionate about what they do. If they care, they can make a difference. Okay, so what I really want to touch on today are kind of the 10 ways I found of working. Surprisingly enough, we have a lot of clip art of ourselves, which is kind of weird when you think about it. It's like, oh, I could use this. But it's like, maybe that is a bit weird. But I kind of, and these are just 10 things I've chosen. Of course, there's lots and lots more that you'll probably, if we have time, be able to talk about too. But I've taken a UX slant on this, but they're really applicable to any role, be it a UXer, a BA, a PO, a developer, really anything. I've also taken the perspective of how do you make stuff happen? Because often I hear people say, how do we get our company to value X being UX or whatever it is? And so that's kind of what I've taken the slant on, how do you make people value something? Okay, so I promised an appearance of Betty White, and here she is, awesome lady, awesome lady. So the number one thing you can do to make a difference is look for opportunities in your company. And this is usually where you're looking for the great before and after story, okay? And it doesn't have to be massive or huge or anything like that. But a great example of this for me, and look, I've built my whole career on basically looking for opportunities. How can we make a difference to this and show people? And so example was at Census when I went there in 2005, there were 2 UXers in the team and there was a massive portfolio of all different products, Where is, Yellow Pages, City Search, White Pages, they had just crazy properties everywhere, but 2 UXers across all of these things. And I saw this project, this opportunity, and basically by applying some UX research techniques, I thought we can make a really big difference here. And we did that, and we demonstrated value, and the stakeholders going, oh, we love this, we want more of this. And I said, well, you want more, you've got to get more people, is the reality. And so in a period of 6 months, we went from 2 to 22 people in that team. All that was doing was purely showing, looking at opportunity and showing how we can deliver some value there. So the next point that links to this, and all of these are pretty much entwined, is once you've found the opportunity, you've got to demonstrate capability as well. So it's really about, being able to show people the way. So if people are, often you'll be in sessions and people will be finding about, do we need this feature or do we need that feature and blah, blah, blah. And you can quickly prototype something, put it in front of people and get some answers. And really what you've done is demonstrate capability and taken people and shown them. And nothing drives me more nuts than when you hear people sitting in a group and they're going, we should be doing this or we should be doing that, and they're going round and round and round. They're not doing anything. The reality is get out there, demonstrate and do the how and take people on that journey. Question everything. Okay, so we've all heard the saying there's no such thing as a dumb question. Well, there is, but it doesn't hurt to actually, if you don't understand something and you don't think the why has been announced, it doesn't hurt to keep questioning until you do. So that's just not just the product managers or the product owners or the project managers. It's really talking to the team, it's talking to other people. And usually what you find, if you can't get a consistent answer, that's usually your opportunity. You found something that you think, okay, I can bring people together on this. Get to know your users. So it's really hard to make a difference if you don't know the person that you're actually doing this thing for. And this is probably one of the key things. So many teams are in isolation of what really these people are who are going to be using this product or service. And this can often fall on the shoulders of the UXer, if there is one, or the BA or the product manager. But really, if you're in a team and people are saying, I think we should do, the user will do X, Y, and Z, and nobody's actually talked to a warm body, that's probably a bit of a worry, and it's something that you can start to really get a grip on quickly. So what I've done here is actually a real-life example. This is a cultural probe that, and my boss just loves the word probe. Cultural probe, he always wants me to talk about cultural probe. And really what this is about was when we were designing our mobile apps, we went out to our user base and got them to 4 times a day for 2 weeks, send us a photo, and basically on that they had to email it in and say where they are and what they were doing. And we got this amazing rich insight of what people were doing all throughout the day and what we could potentially give them on their mobile, with our mobile apps that would help them in their roles. And people get very comfortable and familiar with this very quickly. You probably can't see it from here, but this user got to the point where he was photographing while he was on the toilet. So there's things that you don't necessarily want to see out of this, but there was really amazing rich insights that we actually got from this type of activity. Another one, and I know it's deliberately hard to read, is, we do alpha and beta programs where as soon as we've got something that, not just a feature, it's a minimal valuable experience, we call it, we put it out to people and we basically say, these are the tasks and things that we expect you to be able to do it. Can you do it? And what was your experience doing so? So it's not just a usability test where we're sitting there and creating kind of a false scenario and things. We get them to do it in their environment and they give feedback on that as well. And again, we get some really rich insights. Now, people would probably be sitting there thinking, oh, we haven't got the people to do this and we haven't got the time. I did both of these activities on my own, simply because I didn't have somebody to do it at that time. And the insights that you get are amazing. So it's really rich feedback will come just from simple techniques. Okay, source data. Well, this point complements the last one as well. And really, you can, sometimes it's when you're in different places, it's tricky to get data. Sensors had this amazing analytics team for some of their core apps, but a lot of them were just like left out in the wayland. You're like thinking, what is going on with the site? Trying to get the inside of that. When I came to Aconex, they didn't have Google Analytics in any of their apps because it hadn't been prioritised into the backlog. So at that time though, we could still go to the database logs and basically look at those, see what the actions were going on, and also match that to support calls and seeing what was happening on that side. So we were able to still get a rich picture. Now, what data doesn't tell you, it tells you the what, it doesn't tell you the why. So some people get really frustrated and they go, this is going to give me all the answers, and it won't, is the reality. It tells you what people are doing and what paths and what they're clicking on, what kind of things they're interacting with. It doesn't tell you why they did it and whether that was what they wanted in the first place and why they went down that path. So it's still a really valuable thing to get your head around. So this one probably sounds a little bit roguish, and I'm a big fan, and a number of people I've actually worked with in the past know this is one of my points. I'll do something and not ask permission, and then, beg forgiveness is required later. And this is actually, but it kind of probably seems, well, that could be a bit risky. But the reality is, if you've identified an opportunity, you've got capability, you're helping to fix something, people will rarely say no, and they will rarely say that was a bad idea. You've still got to be, mindful of the other things that are going on in the project and not put something at risk. But generally, it's something that you'll find that people will rarely tell you off for doing the right thing. And this is something that even now I've still got to do all the time. Where, just recently we had a senior stakeholder gives us a list of requirements and says, right, this is the features I need for this product, and it's going to be fantastic, and yeah, I know this thing back to front, and it's going to be really easy, and blah, blah, blah. And we kind of said, okay, yeah, okay. And off we went and validated that. So we still went and got the users and validated that, and then came back, and there were big gaps, as you would expect. And we had to kind of take that stakeholder through that journey and say, look, there's things that are still missing here. And they were okay by the end of it. They were like, okay. And came on once they realised the way we did that, once they realised what those insights were. And now they're an ally for us. So they're kind of saying, when they're coming up, which has its positives and disadvantages as well, now they're saying, I want you to test this. Can you test this? Can you actually be involved in this up earlier in the thing versus coming up with these ideas and saying, hey, off you go and deliver all of this. Okay, deliver. Now, just incidentally, if you Google deliver and baby, you would be horrified of the images that are coming out. I restrained. I was like, oh, yeah. It was pretty like, oh, geez. But the key thing is that, if you've kind of set this up, you've seen this opportunity, you've done these things, you have to deliver on what you've promised. And so many people kind of touch on these things and say, oh, we've got to do this, and they do a little bit over here, and then leave these threads hanging and expect somebody else is going to pick this thing up and get value. Now, that's not saying that you have to do an end-to-end design or end-to-end delivery. If you've delivered valuable insights, and that's gone and redirected a product or something, that's great, but people have to see that value as well. So this is a key thing. Like, a lot of people will talk the talk, but they don't walk it. They don't go and finish it, and at the end of the day, this is what gets you these allies. And again, it leads to these other next 2 points. If you develop something, basically, if you develop something valuable and you're working with a team, it develops trust with that team. So often when you're trying to make a difference, you need to be able to work with these different people to do so. And so it's really important to have relationships with these people and establish where they're coming from as well. And also that they know that they can rely on you to do things as well. And that you're not just going to, if they've come and followed this dream, that you're not just going to leave them hanging somewhere too. And when you do deliver and establish trust, you get what I mentioned earlier, allies or believers. And these are the keys, these are the cornerstone and the lifeblood really of a UXer for sure. Especially in organisations that are immature to UX, you really need people who are believers and can see what you can do. Because they're the ones that go, when you're not in that room, or when you're not there to represent that user, they're your allies. They're going and saying and becoming your voice. And often they're the ones that will push for you on the team. They'll say, hey, Zoe's a great BA, let's get her on this team. She's going to be able to do this. Or, you know, they're the ones that will really push your mission as well. So allies and believers are key for us to be able to keep on going and making a difference. So this point is kind of, again, bundled with all the rest of them. It's really important, even though you know you might be right with something, you've got to be humble about it, okay? Nobody likes something pushed in their face and to say, you were wrong, blah, blah, blah. See? So it's kind of a way of, you know, sometimes depending on your relationship, you might be able to say that, but really building amazing products, especially enterprise products, you can't do it alone. It requires a number of people, and they have to be feeling that you're not just trying to be a rock star on that. They all feel that they're contributing to this thing as well, and you can't just be the one that, hey, I'm doing all of this and look, you're doing my vision, because it's not going to happen. They have to be able to believe in that too and feel that they're contributing to it. So before I wrap up, I just wanted to mention this story, and how many people have actually read about Stone Soup? There's one, couple from there. It's a great fairy tale or fable. Or if you haven't read it, have a look up. And it's so related to agile and everything that you do with creating product visions and things. And it's basically about these 3 soldiers who are returning from war, and they're all tired and they've got only the clothes on their back, and they're going along into this village. And this village is very resistant, like they're hoarding all their food, they don't want to share it with anybody. And these soldiers come in and they say, look, you know, we want to make stone soup. We're able to make this amazing stone soup to people. And the villagers go, oh, really? Yeah. And basically what they're able to do is create this amazing soup. But what they do is they get people to be involved and not realise that they're actually contributing to this soup. So, you know, oh, if I had, imagine if I had a cabbage, this soup could be amazing. So suddenly somebody goes and fetches a cabbage and it goes into the pot. And if I had meat, it would be amazing. So people come and start contributing, where before they have nothing to do with giving these people anything. Like they were going, we don't have any food, blah, blah, blah. So they make this amazing soup, and the villagers go, you are amazing chefs. Like this is incredible. And they reply, it's all in knowing how, is basically their wise words that they're standing there. And I think I really love this story, as it ultimately requires, you know, if you know how to influence people and show them the way, you can kind of create this shared vision. And that's why this story is really great when you actually get into it. It's kind of the model for how you create a shared vision. So I'm a bit like, be careful, wait, there's more, a couple of steak knives I'm throwing in here. Basically, when you've done all of these things, you know, you've identified an opportunity, you've demonstrated capability, you've taken people on this journey, they love the outcome and everything, you're starting all over again. So it's on every feature, it's on every product, it's this constant cycle. And some people, when they're doing that, go, please make it stop, like, when is this thing going to be over? But other people say, actually, this is a really exciting, like, this is the way I'm going to improve my skills, I'm going to continue to enhance my career direction. But you have to realise it is an ongoing thing. This thing never stops, and you have to continually make this contribution if you're going to make a difference. And as I mentioned at the beginning, one of the key things for us is about having fun. And Brent, who actually sitting over here and sits in our area, probably sees us all being a bit nuts sometimes. But it's really key. Like, you're at 8 hours, you work at least 8 hours a day. So you want to kind of have fun with the people that you're working with and inject a bit of life and love into that. And the time goes quickly, and you don't often realise that you are actually making a difference. And you'll notice there is a guy in a middle life suit here. Yeah. I did a little version. So it was part of the PC version. So, just to summarise, look for opportunities, demonstrate capabilities, ask lots of questions, get to know your users, source data, don't ask for permission. And this, incidentally, I see this as kind of a difference between probably as a junior to a senior person. Like, senior people start to kind of go, I don't need to ask somebody to do this. Or they're not sitting there going, how do I do, or where do I go for this? They just start asking people and find it. You know, they just get on and get there. Deliver. Establish trust, find allies and believers, and be humble, plus keep going and have a bit of fun. And the reality is, if you do all of this, I promise you that you'll make a difference purely because you've cared enough to do something and you've actually gone on that journey. So, and you're probably thinking by this time, yeah, all of this is common sense, and you know, a lot of UX is often common sense as well. But you'd be amazed at when push comes to shove and there's this crunch time and everybody's trying to get this thing delivered, and common sense is the first thing that is thrown out the window, and everybody just kind of forgets all of this and they're just running madly round. So it's trying to bring this structure and thought to that is really important. So we've got some time for questions. If you're not an open question person, that's fine. Best way to get me is actually on email, and I'm not a great tweeter, but my account was actually hacked this morning, I think, because I don't use it. And so apparently I'm tweeting about unicorns or something again. I get these messages this morning saying, I think somebody else is using your account. I'm like, oh God, what's being said? But yeah, probably the best way to get me is via email. But any questions at all? And look, if you're interested in talking about some of those topics that we saw earlier, I'm more than happy to also touch on that as well. Oh, of course.
The cultural probe.
Yeah.
That thing, pictures, is that where you can find out about that?
Okay, so I can send you some things around what we did, or just cultural probes in general. Yeah, you might see soon what we did for that. Yeah. So, cultural probes, it's a technique that's come from ethnographic surveys and where people basically go out and they watch people, like, you know, I think they did it with the African tribes initially and just kind of blended into the background and saw what they do. So there's this whole research group around, the name is actually cultural probes, and it really is about how do you get people to do things in their natural environments without, you know, because the minute that you're sitting with somebody, you're tainting the environment is the reality. So a great one I did when we were at Census was we were doing a home renovation site, which there's been like 5,000 of them now, and basically we did this cultural probe with actually Yellow Pages users, and we gave them diaries. And the thing about it, you've got to find the motivating factor to do cultural probe, because people have to be invested enough to want to give you the information as well. So with the one at Census, it was on home renovations, and people were incredibly passionate about renovating their homes. So it was, they were very keen to do it. We gave them these diaries and cameras, and we said, photograph anything you think was of interest to you. On these diaries, we had a happy, sad face, a happy face, a sad face, and an indifferent face. And every day, and we gave them prompts every day to record things in that. And basically left that for 4 weeks. And the data we got back from that was insane. Like, it was these diaries that were like this, and what we then generally do is we do affinity diagram sessions where we go through all the diaries and highlight different data and map it out on these boards. And we literally filled 3 rooms with post-it notes from these diaries. But it was incredibly rich, and these people were so invested because and for them, it was their diary of their home renovation. So they absolutely loved it. With these guys, when I did this other cultural probe, a lot of these people hadn't actually started using phones because this was for the construction industry. And the construction industry is quite laggard in a lot of ways. But they weren't actually using their personal phones at work. They'd kind of been given these shitty BlackBerry phones which didn't do anything, but a lot of them had iPhones at the side that they were kind of like, oh, I've got this, my personal phone and my work phone. And we said, look, can you have a phone that does photos? So if it's this green screen, it's probably not going to be hugely effective for us. And so they used their personal phone, but during the day. And the incentive I think we gave them for that was they got a choice between a slab of beer, again construction guys, so you're kind of working towards what you think, or I think it was $100 Bunnings voucher. And if you think about it, it's a lot of time that they've invested for a $100 Bunnings voucher or a slab of beer. I was kind of at the point where I was thinking, don't take the slab of beer, don't take the slab of beer, because I was kind of trying to logistically work out how I'd get these slabs of beer to Hong Kong. Because we had people from Hong Kong, and that's the thing, Aconex is a global company. So typically when we do these things, we'll try and do it in Australia first, but we know if we're rolling out to different areas, we try to do similar things to that as well. And that can be quite hard and also people are a bit sensitive sometimes in different cultures. Like in the Middle East, the way that you can approach things are very different. And even being female talking to some of these people is sometimes interesting as well. So it's how can you get these people motivated to give you this information? And if it's something a bit different or interesting, they'll typically do it and stay on them. So the biggest mistake people make with cultural probes is they send them out and they give them these people. I've seen beautiful ones done with packs, and you think, oh, great, I'd love to do that. I'd love to sit there and do those things. And then they don't contact the people until 4 weeks later. And of course, everybody else has got priorities on, so they don't do it. You've got to be on these guys and in a nice way and say, hey, how's it going with your thing? And you just prompt them. And they'll continue to do it. But if you just leave them and think they'll do it, they won't.
Did you start with made up personas and then use things like cultural probes to validate that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because a lot of people get caught up in personas and say, right, we've got to do all this research before we can even put a persona together. And we kind of work both ways, depending what we've got. If we haven't got any insight into this user at all, we'll typically start with what do we think? And I think it's a great way to get a benchmark with a team as well. What are they thinking they're designing this thing for, or creating this experience for? And then we'll start to get more and more data fed in so that kind of gives you a benchmark for the types of people you look for. And then you start, as real data starts to come in, you can refine that. So I know with Lean UX there's this big movement of design studios and we've been doing these kind of things for years, but people, it doesn't mean though that you just do this team persona and then you don't validate anything like that. So that's the other mistake people make. They kind of go, what do you think? Let's brainstorm this and we'll do this in this team, and then they never get anything externally. So I think it's a great way to get people going to do internal ones if you haven't got anything else. If you have, start with that, do the team one, and then validate that as well. But personas are real. I don't think they're the be-all and end-all. It's really to help people get an insight into the people that you're designing for. It's still great to be able to get out and see real people as well, to cross-pollinate that. Any other question? How am I going time-wise? I'm getting kicked up. Last question?
What do you use the same persona concept when you're working on a project that is internal and technical?
Yeah, I think it's, again, what are you using the tool for? It's to get people to understand the user that you're potentially developing this technical internal solution for. They've still got to understand that there is a user who's going to do this. And if anything, internal products are easier sometimes because you've got the people there. So you can actually go and interview these people and find out about them and bring that back to the team. So definitely it's not. And look, you hear people like 37 Signals, and I think Atlassian's another one that does this a bit. They go, where are users? We don't need to go externally because we develop software for developers and we're developers ourselves. And even now, they've kind of moved past that. Like, they're starting to get quite a strong UX discipline into that organisation too, because you are not the only person using this thing, is the reality. You've got to go out and actually speak to some of these guys. So I do both, Zoe. Anything else? Thank you. Thanks for your time.